It had been a long time since a movie pissed me off as much as The Mandalorian and Grogu. And look, I am not like I am the #1 Star Wars fan or anything. I don't have anything personal against the cast, even if I think that Pedro Pascal is a bloody piece of trash, or the studio, even if I think that Disney is the worst of the worst, or the director. It's just, I am just tired. I'm tired, boss, of them still treating us like, I don't know, like we are idiots? Hello dear viewers and welcome back. My name is Amilcar, I am a sci-fi and dark fantasy author, and this is 4 Cents. As you already know, I don't do traditional reviews here. I'm not here to tell you what you should or shouldn't watch, and my goal is to honestly share my opinion about the quality of a product. And in that sense, The Mandalorian and Grogu is scraping the bottom of the barrel. Unfortunately or not, the box office confirmed it. The movie is on its way to becoming one of the biggest commercial flops for Disney and Lucasfilm. So, why did the movie annoy me so much? For starters, the movie feels like 3 episodes of the Disney Plus series slapped together with duct tape. You could swap all the characters from one adventure to another and practically nothing will change. It brings nothing new, nothing fresh. It's just more of the same stuff we already saw in the series. And the worst part, it's full of inconsistencies and plot holes that have become the trademark of Disney's current Star Wars. Let's go step by step, okay? From the very beginning. Mando and Grogu are on a mission on a snow planet. Suddenly, the classic AT-AT walker appears. So, if I didn't know this was a new movie, I would sworn it was a deleted scene from The Empire Strikes Back. That shameless attempt to copy the visual style of George Lucas' original films with forced nostalgia was the first big red flag, at least for me. Because right there, I knew the movie was going to rely more on cheap callbacks than on a solid story. Then come the action sequences, which, if I must be honest, leave a lot to be desired. There is an obvious disconnect between the actor portraying the Mandalorian and the extras. Stormtroopers drop dead in ridiculous ways even when Mando isn't even shooting in their direction. Explosions magically appear on their suits, and don't even get me started on the physics. In several moments they are completely absent. For example, explosions with no shockwave, Mando using his jetpack to enter a ship but doing an air jump like there is an invisible floor, a deep pool of water that suddenly turns into a shallow puddle he can walk across, and all of it done just so the Mandalorian looks incredibly competent. I must say, congratulations, mission failed. Much to my regret, it's clear that the lack of creativity and Disney heavy influence are now canon in the franchise. For example, they're still using old school quotes wanted posters with static images that look like, I don't know, a TCG cards? Even though in this universe they have incredible advanced holographic technology. Or take Rota, for example. He has super developed musculature, but it doesn't match at all with his slug-like anatomy. I mean, I don't mind him being muscular, The problem is they, and when I say they I mean Disney, humanized him way too much. They could have designed an imposing figure that respect his hot body, but instead they gave him a championship six pack and a bodybuilder back. It's just insane. It has no sense. And some people will say this is cherry picking, man, and I get it. But when the entire movie is held together by plot conveniences, this stops being the exception and becomes the rule. And that's my problem. Another example. When Jano confesses to the Mandalorian that he was going to kill Rota, it makes zero sense. Especially because he was supposedly trying to buy the contract. I mean, it's completely illogical. Oh, and I forget something, of course. Rota is yet another teenager with daddy issues. How original, right? I don't know, this must be a Hollywood writer stuff. And the problem is, the list of plot holes just keep going. The Mandalorian gets knocked out unconscious multiple times for hours, and nobody takes his weapons or his armor. No one thinks about neutralizing one of the biggest threats in the underworld. Why? Because the plot needs it that way. The timing between actions and reactions has no logic. The dialogues often don't explain what we are seeing on screen. The camera angles in the fights are confusing and the choreography keeps failing. The proportions of the animated creatures change from 1 second to the next compared to the actors. And don't even get me started on sequences like the Mandalorian's kidnapping. I mean, how the hell did the Grogu minions know exactly where to go? And not just in space, but inside the hot palace. They knew exactly how to move, how to get in, and how to navigate the interior. And no, it wasn't Grogu guiding them with the Force. Clearly, they were the ones guiding him. And speaking of Grogu, probably the most useless creature in the entire movie. A being who has much higher mastery of the Force than he should, but conveniently forgets to use it whenever the script needs him to. One moment he's making giant force leaps or stopping robot vehicles, the next he has to climb something or get stuck in a regular cage. His powers appears and disappear depending on what the script needs, and his main reason for existence seems to be selling merch, Funko Pops, plushies, and anything else they can think of with the baby Yoda's face. That's all. In summary, this movie is another poor and desperate attempt not to revive a franchise that has been dead for years, but to sell more Disney Plus subscriptions and more merchandise of a character that, in theory, should have disappeared after the first season. And I am talking about Grogu. This result confirms that Dave Filoni was never the savior of Star Wars. He wasn't the new face that was going to fix all the mistakes accumulated over the years under Kathleen Kennedy. It only reaffirms what people like Ryan Kenneth have been saying. Filoni is more of the same. He was always part of the problem. I mean, even George Lucas saw Ahsoka as just another character in the universe, but here they forcibly elevated her in a completely uncreative way, and we already saw the results. The same exact thing happens with The Mandalorian. I mean, they try to glorify the character by putting him in fights that, according to the original canon, should have been a guaranteed death. For example, the fight against the bounty hunter protecting the twins, Accuso. That race is infinitely superior to a human in physical capabilities, even a highly trained one. That fight should have ended in seconds, but once again, for the sake of the story's convenience, it didn't. And that makes me wonder, why the hell create such varied races with such a rich and impressive backstories if, at the end of the day, no one of it has any weight or consequences? How far is it acceptable to sacrifice the lore and internal consistency of the universe just to artificially inflate a character? The movie is packed with so many internal logical failures that actually hurt. As I said before, they are still use physical wanted posters with static photos, even though they have advanced holograms. The Mandalorian gets knocked unconscious multiple times for hours and nobody steals his Beskar armor, one of the most valuable and rare materials in the galaxy. In the fight against Rota, he stabs him with the blade of the axe, if I am not wrong, and it doesn't cut him. The explosion sequence inside the walker completely ignores the shockwave and only reacts to the flames. The jetpack jump to enter the ship, he already flying and suddenly uses the air like a solid floor. The deep pool of water that suddenly turns into a shallow puddle where he can walk on water. The helmet that the twins take as a trophy, and just a few seconds later they give it back to him. The giant snake whose size and behavior change depending on what the scene needs. The short aliens that land right next to the Hutt Palace without anyone detecting them, and they suddenly know the internal layout perfectly and rescue Mando like they live their whole lives there. The secret transport ship carrying Rota is loaded with racks full of weapons just so Mando can have his cool moment grabbing them like in a video game. And the list keep going and going and going and going. I could be talking about mistakes, if you want to call it that way, for, I don't know, 20 to 30 minutes, because it's insane. Also, while watching the movie, I kept noticing basic, obvious solutions to many of the problems that appeared on screen. And I am not even a deep Star Wars lore expert, but some things were jumping out of me because they were so obvious. For example, the scene where some robots are searching for the injured Mandalorian and one of them uses binoculars. A robot with binoculars. That could have been easily fixed with showing the scene from the robot point of view with the classic zoom in and zoom out sound, and that way, I don't know, you could have avoided the use of binoculars, which is absolutely stupid. Or, for example, they were looking for him without using any kind of thermal view. They could use the classic cliche that actually works really well, having Mando covered in mud for some reason, for some random reason. and that would have prevented the thermal sensors from detecting him, for example. And that's the thing. At the end of the day, it's not about being the biggest expert in the universe or being a genius. It's about having respect for the audience. What Filoni and company transmit with every new release is exactly the opposite to this. It doesn't matter how bad the product is, people are going to buy it anyway, and I am not getting fired. In summary, The Mandalorian and Grogu is the latest proof that Star Wars under Disney is still running on autopilot. They prioritize nostalgia, merchandising, and epic, in quotes, moments over a coherent story that respect its own universe. And yeah, maybe it's not the worst movie in cinema story, but it is another mediocre product that insults the intelligence of the audience that love this franchise so much. And this is the thing. If Disney and Filoni want Star Wars to matter again, they have to stop treating the fans like idiot consumers and start respecting the lore, the logic, and the real creativity. And this is for today's video. If you enjoyed this analysis, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with others. I love to read your thoughts in the comments. So, what do you guys think? Did you watch it? Did you like it more than I did? Or did it also leave you with that we've seen this before and done better kind of feeling? Once again, thank you so much for watching. My name is Amilcar, and I'll see you in the next 4 Cents video. May the Force, well, may the logic at least be with you. Bye bye.